As I stand in the kitchen, the remnants of Rebecca's disdain still stinging, I can't help but reflect on the years that have woven the fabric of my life, especially the ones spent nurturing my son Carlos. Memories flood back, vibrant and warm like the spices I used to create my dishes. I remember the first time he tried spaghetti, the look of pure joy on his face as the rich tomato sauce dripped down his chin, the giggles that erupted as he smeared it across the table. I didn't mind the mess. Those moments were my treasures. Each birthday was marked by my labor of love, the cakes baked to perfection, the carefully wrapped gifts decorated with his favorite cartoon characters. Our home was filled with laughter, mingling with the aromas of fresh herbs and simmering sauces. I remember the smell of basil swirling through the air, the joyful clamor of family gathered around the table, our bodies close, our hearts even closer. I shaped those moments for him, instilling in him a love for family and food, believing I was building a legacy that would last a lifetime. Yet amidst the joyful recollections, there's an ache, a reminder of the dreams I shelved. I had my own aspirations of becoming a renowned chef, visions of bustling kitchens, pleasing both discerning palates and my competitive spirit, but those dreams were eclipsed by the fervent desire to ensure Carlos flourished. Every late-night study session I facilitated, every soccer game I attended, those were sacrifices made from a pure heart. I continued to question if I turned my back on my identity for a role that now feels diminished, but the kitchen, a sanctuary I created, remains a bittersweet reminder of my journey. These days, I find myself straightening the tablecloths and arranging the cutlery, yet my senses are dulled. The joy of cooking is clouded by Rebecca's harsh comments, which cut through the very essence of my culinary pride. I catch a glimpse of my family photo framed on the wall, a snapshot of happier times. Carlos, a boy with a wide grin, nestled between his laughing cousins. My heart swells for him, but also tightens with the realization of how far we've drifted. The family dynamics shifted once Rebecca entered the picture. She took her place like a rapidly growing weed, overtaking the delicate blooms I had nurtured for so long. The aroma of my cooking used to bring Carlos running into the kitchen, eager to help or sneak a taste. "Mom, what's for dinner?" he'd ask, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Now, that eagerness hangs in the air like a ghost. He seldom offers a compliment, and the brightness of our mealtime conversations has dimmed, overshadowed by Rebecca's sharp remarks. I feel the tension coil within me, a precarious hold on the remnants of my dignity. Each meal I prepare now feels laden with unspoken expectations, a gamble for acknowledgement that seems perpetually out of reach. I can feel the biting chill of her humiliation wrapping around me, and I'm left struggling for breath amidst laughter that doesn't belong to me. But amid this turmoil, I hold on to hope, a flicker that refuses to fade. I remind myself of the bond forged through love and sacrifice, even as Rebecca tries to overshadow my contributions with her modern dubbed dishes. I silently reaffirm my belief. They may forget the ingredients, the techniques, the traditions, but my love, a flavor unique and irreplaceable, will always be present in every bite. It's time to reclaim that essence before it slips away entirely. As I run my fingers along the cool countertop, I know the next gathering will change everything. I will not allow myself to be dismissed any longer. With this resolve settling in my heart, I feel the stirrings of a plan begin to form, an opportunity to remind them of the invisible ingredients that make our family meals truly special. The summer family barbecue stands out vividly in my memory, the air thick with the smell of grilled meat and the laughter of my loved ones. Everyone was basking in the golden glow of the evening sun, and for a moment I thought the world was perfect. Then came Rebecca. She entered the circle like a whirlwind, instantly charming everyone with her animated stories and infectious laughter. I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she would bring a new warmth to our family, but it only took a few casual comments for my optimism to dim. After a delightful evening filled with memories, I served my famous chicken picada. Just as everyone settled in, she took a mouthful and wrinkled her nose, declaring, "Nice, but have you tried adding lemon zest? It really elevates the dish." It was a small comment at first, but it snaked its way into my heart like a serpent coiling around its prey. Carlos sat beside her, innocent and blind, his fork still moving through the chicken, oblivious to the tension slinking into the air. Over the months, these subtle jabs escalated to more pointed critiques. At every family gathering, Rebecca seized the spotlight, showcasing her modern creations, quinoa salads and trendy dishes that I knew would have never graced our family table before. I remember one particular evening when I prepared an elaborate feast, a culmination of family traditions. She stepped in, rearranging my dishes for a photo op, promoting her preferences while dismissing mine. "Mariana's food is classic, but let's give it a little twist," she exclaimed, leaving me on the periphery, my heart sinking with every word. Once amidst a gathering of close relatives, Rebecca took it further, blurting out to the assembled family, "We should get Mariana into culinary school. She's had all this practice." Everyone's laughter fell like a weight upon my shoulders. My cheeks burned crimson. Unable to muster a response or the energy to defend myself, I forced a smile, feeling like a ghost in my own home. As these moments compounded, I began to withdraw, yearning for the sanctuary of my kitchen. The very space I filled with love now felt suffocating, tainted by her piercing comments. Each aromatic dish I prepared began to feel like a battle. Where I once reveled in the sizzle of garlic and spices, now I found myself questioning every ingredient, every method, and every ounce of pride. I recalled a photograph perched on the shelf of my kitchen, a snapshot from years ago of Carlos, delightedly covered in flour as we baked together. I felt a twinge of bitterness, a painful reminder of how much had changed. Once my dishes drew him in like a moth to a flame. Now he seemed indifferent, lost in the haze of Rebecca's influence. The atmosphere at family gatherings became a web of whispered comments and unspoken grievances. Nights filled with the clinking of utensils transformed into a burden, suffocated by her ease in belittling my cooking. It felt as though the very walls of my home had conspired against me, eroding the familial bonds I'd worked so hard to nurture. I began spending more time with my sisters, Lucia and Dianta. Their words of encouragement became my lifeline. "Stay strong, Mariana. Remember who you are," they'd say. But even their support felt fragile against the tide of ridicule that washed over me. The lively banter that once filled our home seemed absent, replaced by the specter of an unchallengeable dominance Rebecca had claimed. In the quiet moments, I could feel my spirit growing weary, clutching onto the remnants of my dignity like a fragile thread. Cooking was no longer an act of love, but a daunting task laden with expectations and scrutiny. My identity felt peeled away like the skin from an onion, layer by layer, revealing the raw, vulnerable core within, exposed and aching for recognition. I stood in the kitchen one evening, the scent of simmering sauce wafting around me. I tried to remind myself of my legacy, of the flavor depths that ran through generations of family recipes. They may forget the technique, but my love, a flavor unique and irreplaceable, will always linger in every bite, I whispered to myself, but doubt loomed large, obscuring that sentiment. As I chopped vegetables under the soft glow of the kitchen light, I made a silent vow. I would not remain a background character in my own life, nor would I allow Rebecca to dictate my worth. I would reclaim my place, a rightful seat at the family dinner table, centered amidst the clamor and laughter with dignity intact. With that flicker of hope igniting my resolve, I could feel the invisible ingredients of my spirit stirring within me, ready to rise once more. It was time to face the brewing storm, to confront the encroaching shadows Rebecca cast over our family, and to remind everyone of the warmth and love I brought to the table. The kitchen filled with the soft golden light of the morning sun, illuminating my counters smeared with flour as I prepared for another family gathering. The clinking of my mixing bowls, coupled with the gentle hum of my favorite playlist, used to comfort me, but now felt like a battleground. Each recipe I pulled from memory is laced with love, family heirlooms of flavor, yet they now brought me anxiety, filled with expectations of dismissive critiques from Rebecca. This time, however, I was determined to make a statement. Behind the chopped vegetables and sizzling pans, I began to craft a plan, a vision of reclaiming my space at the table, not just as a participant, but as the heart beating at its center. I envisioned how the evening would unfold, an orchestra of flavors ready to take the spotlight, overshadowing any jibes meant to undermine me. The familiar aroma of garlic sautéing would serve as my shield against the biting critiques I sensed lurking in the shadows. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed allies, and I found that support in the laughter of my sisters Lucia and Dianta. I began to share my plan, emphasizing the importance of highlighting our traditions in ways that would both honor our family's history and elevate it to something even Rebecca couldn't dismiss. "I'm planning a feast," I said, glancing between them. "Not just any feast, one that reminds everyone what our family is about. I'll embrace our legacy and show how it brings us together." They exchanged knowing glances, each giving a small nod that illuminated their excitement. We discussed dishes that spoke of memories, our grandmother's famed empanadas, the warming richness of locro, the hearty depth of puchero. This would be a symphony of flavors, a performance showcasing not just my cooking but our collective heritage. "I'll need your help," I continued, my heart racing with renewed purpose. "Let's bring our memories to life and share them with everyone. Let's create a narrative of unity that even Rebecca cannot disregard." With a sense of urgency, we divided tasks. Lucia would bring her baking expertise for the desserts. She always had a knack for creating sweets that could waft airy joy across the room. Dianta was to assist with the preparation of the savory dishes, her hands as skilled as mine. As we organized, a sense of empowerment washed over me, an antidote to the humiliation I had felt so deeply. The time for reclaiming my dignity was drawing near. As the days rolled forward, I immersed myself in preparation. I researched, planned, and unleashed my creativity with each dish I crafted. Memories flooded in, learning recipes from my mother, grandmother, and family gatherings around the table, each one a tapestry woven with love. I envisioned the glowing smiles, the warmth in the air, feelings and flavors intertwining. But I had to account for Rebecca. She was a formidable opponent, one skilled in her manipulation. I couldn't allow her offhand remarks to undermine my efforts, nor could I let her derail the warmth I was about to create. I prepared myself mentally for the inevitable comments and criticisms, fortifying my resolve beneath each layer of seasoning. At night, while resting before the gathering, I recited my mantra. "They may mute me at the table, never in my heart." It became my shield, a reminder that, regardless of the jibes or laughter that ensued, I held the power of love and legacy deep within me. No one could strip away my identity. It was a flame that would never flicker out. As the day of the gathering approached, anxiety transformed into anticipation. The familiar dance of chopping and mixing soothed my nerves, wrapping me in comforting memories while preparing me for the confrontation awaiting me. I could feel the dignity anchoring my heart, a sturdy foundation beneath my most fragile moments. Several hours before the guests were due to arrive, my hands flew across the countertop, guided by muscle memory that felt like reclaiming my heritage. The kitchen was my canvas, vibrant with color, bright bell peppers, crimson tomatoes, and golden corn blending harmoniously. The flurry of activity felt like a revival, and I reveled in it. I could almost hear the sounds of my family arriving, the cheerful banter prompting laughter and clinking glasses. I envisioned my sisters at my side as we unveiled each dish, the stories woven into each bite drawing us closer, pushing back the shadows cast by Rebecca. As I stirred the bubbling pot of locro, I took a deep breath, summoning the strength I knew was locked within me. This gathering was going to be different. This was my time to reclaim my voice, like a chef taking control of her kitchen. Standing tall and steady, I whispered my mantra again. They may mute me at the table, never in my heart. It would echo through the hallways of my mind as I prepared to face Rebecca and remind everyone of the warmth that always belonged to me. The day of the gathering dawned bright and crisp, nearly too perfect to be true. The sun filtered through the kitchen window, and I could feel the warmth wrapping around me like a cozy shawl. I glanced around my home, transformed by the aromas of my carefully prepared feast, the promise of comfort lurking beneath each simmering pot. But as excitement bubbled within me, tension settled in my bones. I had to stay alert. While my sisters helped with last-minute preparations, I couldn't help but turn my thoughts back to Rebecca. I knew her maneuvers well. They were as predictable as they were infuriating. The way she wielded her cutting comments, gilded with a smile but sharp as knives, felt like a shadow lurking at every corner. As I chopped fresh herbs, I reminded myself of my plan. This evening, I would control the narrative. I made note of the small things, Rebecca's tendency to assert her superiority through sarcastic remarks, and how she often overturned family traditions with a casual flip of her wrist and the announcement of her new ideas. I also began to notice the subtleties of how often she maneuvered everyone's attention away from me and onto herself. It was time to gather evidence, not just for myself, but for those around us who might be unaware. As I finished arranging the appetizers, I steeled myself and pulled my phone from my pocket. I opened our family group chat, the digital equivalent of the family dinners that had turned sour. I needed a record, a way to capture the indelible effects of Rebecca's manipulation and control. I scrolled through the messages, tracing the timeline of gatherings marred by her biting comments and exclusionary tactics. Over the years, it had become apparent I was being outmaneuvered, and my contributions were overshadowed by her relentless need to be the center of attention. "Remember last winter?" I typed, recalling the chilly night when she turned a simple recipe for empanadas into an extravagant affair by calling it her cultural revival. I winced as I typed, aware that even now, the subtle sting of her words could reduce me to a whisper. "Remember how she joked about the way I made my piccata? I want us to be aware of how often she stands in the way of our traditions," I added. It felt risky, but I pressed send, forcing myself to confront the truth that had long been hidden in silence. Holding a mirror up to our family dynamic was a daring yet necessary move. Throughout the afternoon's preparations, I kept my eyes peeled for signs of Rebecca's impending arrival. Every sound at the door made my heart quicken. I knew she would arrive with a flourish, ready to shift the mood of the gathering with a flash of bravado. My sister sensed my anxiety, offering encouraging nods and supportive squeezes on my shoulders. I reminded myself once more of my mantra. They may mute me at the table, never in my heart, and felt a surge of resolve. When the doorbell rang, a cascade of noise spilled into our home. The chatter of a dozen voices burst through, blending into a joyous tumult that both comforted and unnerved me. I took a moment to collect myself, drawing strength from the food and family that surrounded me. As I welcomed my relatives, I observed Rebecca slipping through the crowd, her energy radiating confidence as she took the opportunity to engage with everyone. A quick exchange of pleasantries, a teasing smile aimed at me, the same playbook she often used. As the evening unfolded, I remained vigilant, nursing the simmering pots on the stove while participating in conversations laced with sarcasm and biting humor. I felt Rebecca's gaze on me, the way she gauged my reactions to her comments, sending a flicker of discomfort through my core. Still, every smile and nod she offered was met by a wall of resolve. I would acknowledge her presence without yielding to her intimidation. In a small, understated manner that only I could sense, my family began to shift. I caught Tianza directing a subtle, knowing glance my way, a message of support that was palpable. She understood the unspoken battle taking place, and I felt bolstered by her quiet loyalty. It was clear that the prepared feast was captivating the family, sparking nostalgic conversations around the table. Each bite created pathways into memories filled with laughter, and warmth drifted around us like an invisible thread tightening family bonds. But as I stirred the pot of locro, I caught the unmistakable sound of Rebecca's mocking laughter. She had found her audience, and the energy shifted again like the tide. Who knew locro could actually taste good? It's so hearty it could really use a condiment, she quipped, just loud enough for everyone to hear. My heart sank momentarily, the air thick with tension as a ripple of nervous laughter followed her remark. Yet, at that moment, with everyone's attention swirling towards Rebecca and the precarity of her words opening up the floor, I felt a flicker of anger, cyclone within me. Anger birthed from years of patronizing remarks. This wasn't just about me, it was about the warmth of our family legacy being challenged by her witticisms. I took a bold step forward. It's a traditional recipe intended to bring us together. Locro is a blend of ingredients, just as our family is a blend of love and support. And it's better when appreciated, not ridiculed, I said, my voice steady even as my heart raced. A hush fell over the table, every eye drawn toward me. In that electrifying pause, I felt emboldened where once I would have crumbled. This was my opportunity. I could almost see the gears turning in the minds surrounding me, the incredulous looks exchanged and whispers drawn. Friends and family began sharing their own cherished memories revolving around the dishes I had prepared. And as the laughter began to fill the space again, it was laced with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. The bitter edge of Rebecca's barbs met my motherly resolve. Quietly, in the back of my mind, I reminded myself that my fight was not against Rebecca. It was for the family I loved. As the evening wore on, I continued to observe, gathering the threads of the story that had been passed down through generations, little notes of support illuminating my path forward. I could feel the tide slowly turning, my collection of evidence reinforcing my own sense of self, each shared memory affirming our family's bond, even in the face of Rebecca's sarcasm. It felt almost electric. Shall we continue with Block 5? As the evening progressed, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, an electric buzz of recognition and support swirling around me like the spices in my dishes. Every shared story ignited the embers of our family's culinary legacy, and my heart swelled with love. The warmth encircled me, crescendoing with each clink of glasses and laughter, almost palpable. But even amidst this awakening, the nagging presence of Rebecca lingered, her shadow stretching ominously around the room. It wasn't long before she struck again, her voice slicing through the laughter like a misplaced knife. I think it's cute when Mariana tries to embrace our old recipes, but don't you think we should evolve? The playful snickers that followed stung like cold water, dousing the fire I was desperately trying to ignite. Pushing my heart back down into my chest, I knew I had to remain composed. This wasn't just a moment about food, it was about control, about who defined our family legacy. Determined not to let her remarks derail the evening, I gently took a breath, tightening my hold on the serving spoon. I could feel the gaze of my sisters, unwavering and supportive, urging me forward with affirmations I didn't need to vocalize. Evolving means honoring where we came from, Rebecca, I shot back, my voice laced with calm conviction. Food is not just about ingredients. It's a vessel for our stories, our shared experiences. Why shouldn't we embrace what's always brought us together? A hush settled over the table, startled faces flickering between disbelief and intrigue. The risk of confrontation hung in the air, but alongside it, a delicious aroma of possibility sparked hope deep within me. Could it be that the tide was indeed shifting? I took a long, steadying breath, my words flowing like a well-thought-out melody. Each dish on this table, every recipe passed down, is filled with love and memories, making us who we are. Evolving can happen without losing our essence. When we gather together, it's this mix of tradition and creativity that makes our meals beautiful. In that moment, I dared to push back against the long-standing narrative Rebecca had woven, a narrative that belittled my identity and deflated my culinary pride. I chose to reclaim it, and for the first time in a long while, I saw eager faces nodding in agreement. The voices around the table began to echo mine, a cacophony of support rising from the depths of our shared history. It was beautiful. It was palpable. What had felt distant now surged forward like a wave. Exactly, murmured Diana, her voice steady. And it's not about one tradition or another. It's about the love that binds us in the kitchen. The room rippled with a soft crescendo of agreements, the sound of unity vibrating with tenderness. A warmth bloomed within me, illuminating the darkness that Rebecca sought to linger in. I couldn't help but glance toward her, instinctively seeking to gauge her reaction. I found her face momentarily frozen, the overthrow of her control reflected in the widening of her eyes. The tension thickened as the laughter morphed into an undercurrent of support that fluttered around the table. It was that moment I saw the cracks forming in her confident facade. Her seat at the head of the table appeared less assured now. Seizing this delicate moment, I turned my attention back to my family, who now felt energized and alive, eager to contribute their own stories and traditions. One cousin recounted how our grandmother would make the empanadas every Sunday, reminding us all of the echoes of laughter that accompanied their creation. Another chimed in, sharing their love for the spicy salsa I'd made from my mother's recipe, recalling the comforting rituals we shared together in the kitchen. Each memory conjured a sense of cohesion that filled me with warmth, choking back my earlier doubts. I quietly soaked in the camaraderie that grew in the space we had shared, acknowledging each compliment and shared truth as brick-and-mortar tools for rebuilding the very foundation of our family legacy. It was happening. I was no longer a silhouette behind an obscured light. I was blossoming, and with each passing second my confidence grew, solidifying the shield of dignity I so desperately needed. Just as I began to feel the weight of my success settle comfortably within me, Rebecca attempted to reclaim her role. Isn't it quaint to reminisce about the past? But maybe we should also talk about what direction our family should head in future generations. Her casual tone masked the underlying jab, but it was as thin as paper, and I could hear the faint murmurs of discomfort ripple through the gathering. I held her gaze and forced a smile, a strategy blooming into a delicate dance between assertiveness and wisdom. "Of course, change is important, Rebecca," I replied, allowing the firmness to resonate through my voice. "But change cannot happen without recognizing where we came from. Our past is woven into our future, and our future will be even brighter when built upon these rich traditions that define us." I felt a brighter warmth radiating from my family, their affirming glances bolstering my resolve. I took note of their reactions, the way they rallied beside me, a wall of support against the unyielding saltiness of her comments. With confidence, I continued, "If we lose sight of our essence, we risk losing each other." This was my moment, a definitive turning point where Rebecca's authority dimmed amid the gleaming intimacy spreading across the gathering. I relished the realization burying itself in the core of my heart. I was no longer simply a vessel ushering plates to the table, but a creator of the story itself. My voice mattered. My cuisine had meaning beyond just food. The room fell into a quiet hum, and in that sparkling moment, I knew we had crossed an invisible threshold. Each nod and smile from my family felt like layers being added to the mosaic of our legacy. Together, we had shined a light on the very essence of who we were, intertwined through love, culture, and delicious memories. Suddenly, the tones around the table weren't just voices to fill the solitary void. They began to form a tapestry of support, each thread intertwined with laughter and joy, creating a shield of unity against the barbs of isolation that had stung me for far too long. This wasn't only about me reclaiming my dignity. This was about all of us, and the beautiful legacy we continued to build. Shall we move on to Block 6? The atmosphere had shifted, and for the first time in recent memory, I felt lightness lifting my spirit. As if woven from delicate strands of hope and resilience, the gathering thrived, buoyed by laughter and the heartening memories of our shared heritage. Yet, I knew this moment was only the beginning. I had to execute my plan fully to ensure the changes we yearned for would solidify. As I moved from kitchen to dining table, gathering plates and ladling food into bowls, I felt a newfound authority that coursed eagerly through my veins. This was my stage, my moment to orchestrate the narratives weaving together our past and hopeful futures. Each serving was more than sustenance. It was a declaration of who we were. Each bite a reminder of our identity, lovingly preserved. But then I turned to Rebecca, who sat quietly at the edge of the table, tension rippling from her being. She watched, assessing, ready to spring back with sharp-witted comments. I needed to quell that energy, to transform it, or perhaps channel it into something constructive. I noted the change in my rhythm, the way it shifted with the sensation of her gaze. This juggling act would require delicate balance now more than ever. As I served the last portion of the locro, I made a discreet yet firm decision. It would be time to strategically engage her directly, politely yet assertively. With my heart pounding and the warmth of my family surrounding me like an invisible fortress, I approached Rebecca with a mixture of hope and readiness. "So, Rebecca," I addressed her, a smile warming my voice, You spoke earlier about evolving our family traditions. I'd love to hear your ideas. What do you think we could incorporate into our next gatherings? I watched her closely, dissecting her expressions, analyzing how her posture shifted beneath my inquiry. Would she see this as an opportunity to regain control? Or could she acknowledge the bond we were weaving that evening? I held my breath as her gaze flickered, but before I could dissect the nuances, she replied, "Well, I think we could focus on fusion recipes. Mix things up a little." My mind raced. Fusion. The word felt like both a blessing and a challenge. It seemed she might not have completely grasped the essence of what I hoped to create, but there was potential in her suggestion, an opening to further our family legacy while incorporating her creativity. Fusion recipes could be a wonderful idea, I returned, affixing my sincere smile, a gesture that flowed like honey. Perhaps we could draw inspiration from our roots while mixing in those new flavors. It could be a way to create exciting gatherings and preserve our identity as a family. What do you all think? The positive hum of voices crescendoed in approval from my family, with each reaction feeding on the warmth generated by that moment. It was exhilarating, as if every word echoed through our collective heartstrings, knitting us closer together. I turned to announce the dessert, careful not to dismiss Rebecca too swiftly, offering her a chance to partake in the collaborative spirit I was aiming for. "Now, who's ready for dessert? Lucia is bringing her incredible tres leches cake, and I will be making my famous dulce de leche flan. Let's keep the dialogue going over these sweet treats." The table erupted into joyous chatter, delight evident on every face as dessert was served. I could sense the cautious tension within Rebecca reshaping itself, shifting from hostility to passive intrigue, and I continued to navigate the room carefully, reinforcing the invitations for openness. My vision of contoured nostalgia established itself as the evening weaved onward. Dessert was met with applause, and I reveled in the shared tastes and stories, savoring laughter that enveloped us like the menudo wafting through the air. With every spoonful of sweet flan enjoyed, I nurtured love behind those flavors, building on the legacy I was determined to preserve. However, just as we settled into the rhythm of laughter and family joy, Rebecca pushed back again. She said, her tone glib, "maybe we should also consider hosting these gatherings elsewhere. Modern places like a restaurant, think of the ambiance." The laughter momentarily gave way to an awkward stillness. Her suggestion floated like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples of discord through our secure ambience. I noticed the fractional widening of eyes, the cautious glances exchanged, and I felt others bristling at her notion. I took a deep, measured inhale, summoning all the strategic intellect I could muster. It was clear to me now. Her desire for evolution was not merely for improvement. It was tinged with a need to overpower and usurp our culture. As the tension hung, I refused to let that energy sway the evening or our tighter grasp on familial unity. "Restaurants indeed offer an appealing ambience, Rebecca," I countered, striving for an upbeat cadence. "But the essence of what we're creating together stems from right here, our home. It's the heart of our family, our history, where memories intertwine with flavors. There's a beauty to the chaos too, don't you think?" A wave of support surged from my family, who collectively began to engage in the conversation, validating my words. I reached across the table to take Rebecca's hand in mine. "Perhaps we could compromise," I suggested gently but firmly. "Let's have more gatherings here, while also exploring occasional outings, keeping our balance." Echoes of agreement rang through the room, bolstered by nods and affirmations. The air thickened for a moment, warming with a sense of potential change, ruptured only by the softness of love threading through our family ties. Gradually, I felt Rebecca's tense expression ease, uncertainty skimming her lips. "You might be right," she finally replied. "Maybe we can bring a bit of both together." The sincerity in her voice, tentative yet genuine, sent a spark of hope through my heart. A seedling of understanding had been planted, and it was nurturing the ground for a new, entwined future. From that moment, I relinquished my fear and embraced this newfound collaboration. Each turn of the conversation was met with the resilience I had cultivated, each suggestion igniting echoes of laughter and warmth around me. As the chatter crescendoed into delight, a warmth enveloped the room unlike any I had felt in ages. "Together," I whispered to myself, softly ruminating on that single word. "We rise." It would forever linger as a thread binding our shared history and reimagined future. Are we ready to dive into Block 7? The evening flowed seamlessly, a rich blend of laughter and connection framing our family's legacy. Each bite of fruit-infused dulce de leche and every shared story enveloped me in warmth, fueling the fire of unity I had always longed for. But beneath the surface of camaraderie, I sensed an undercurrent shifting, the tension in Rebecca, simmering just below her composed exterior, felt like a storm brewing. With dessert plates cleared, I seized the moment. Our newfound harmony felt fragile yet potent. "Let's plan our next gathering," I suggested, meeting Rebecca's eyes directly. "What if we included everyone for a grand celebration of flavors, everyone contributing their own dishes?" The table momentarily fell silent, each family member suspended in anticipation. At that moment, Rebecca's expression hardened, and I could feel the tension crackle in the air like static electricity. "Why involve everyone?" she shot back. "We've always handled this amongst ourselves. Isn't that how it should be?" Sorrow gripped my heart, but my resolve fired up and I forged ahead. "No, Rebecca, this isn't about division. It's about enrichment. Bringing in diverse contributions will only deepen our ties." Fresh determination coursed through me, emboldening my words, and I pressed on. "Our past is etched in every recipe. Let's celebrate it while inviting new flavors." Around the table, murmurs of agreement blossomed, igniting a flicker of hope within me. I could sense the shifting mood, the realization beginning to dawn on my family. Undeterred, Rebecca struck again, her voice sharper this time. "You're not seeing the bigger picture, Mariana. What if other influences muddy our traditions? We need a unified direction." The sharpness of her words sent chills through me, but I remained standing firm. "And who gets to decide that, Rebecca? Leadership isn't about control, it's about collaboration. Our family bonds grow stronger when we embrace differences, not shy away from them." I caught several family members' glances. The collective energy swelled as I sensed their support. When we share our varied stories, we weave a richer tapestry, a legacy we all belong to. I allowed that thought to hang in the air, heart pounding as the realization washed over me. This was my moment, the culmination of years of heartache and resilience. When Miguel spoke up from the end of the table, it felt like magic. "You know," he began tentatively, "I think Mariana's right. Opening up these gatherings could help us all grow. It sounds exciting to learn from each other." A chorus of agreement rippled across the table, sparking a fire of encouragement. "Absolutely," Diana added. "Making room for everyone could beautify our traditions." The vibe around the table began to shift, dissolving the barriers that had once enveloped us in strife. In the face of growing dissent, I turned toward Rebecca, holding her gaze. "Imagine how much joy we could create together," I urged, feeling the warmth of hope radiating. "Let's transform our gatherings into a festival of our heritage, where each dish tells a story we all share." Her face softened slightly, but I could see uncertainty still shadowing her eyes. But I felt emboldened by the shifting tide, feeling assured with every word I cast into the room. Together, we can rise, not as separate entities, but as one family. The air shifted again, and for the first time, I felt the energy around us pulling together. This was it, the moment of connection I yearned to cultivate. In that heartbeat, I sensed Rebecca's defenses begin to falter, her determined mask slipping ever so slightly. My heart soared as the room echoed with compassion, a fabric woven from our past and a glimpse of all the wonders our future held. Are we ready for Block 8 to conclude the story?